Hi, and welcome to Bible History Man. This week, I want to talk about Egypt. What happened to Egypt after the children of Israel ran off? How did they fare? And how did this regional power become only occasionally mentioned in the pages of the Bible hereafter? Well, let's follow their history a little bit. The 18th dynasty is the dynasty in the New Kingdom that the children of Israel departed from. And after that, the 18th dynasty declined to a certain extent. Some noteworthy pharaohs after that was Akhenaten, who decided that maybe Egypt should try out monotheism. And so the grass grew in a lot of the different places, particularly the priests of Amun's temple. And the priests of Amun, of course, are not happy about this at all, and they get to his heir, King Tut. And King Tut is not famous for being a great pharaoh, but instead he's a boy pharaoh who his grave goods were not stolen. And so he's very famous because his grave goods are, well, I guess they did get stolen, didn't they? They just got stolen by a more modern group and put into museums and transported around the place. But I guess we don't call that stealing. After some unpleasantness with the death of King Tut, the power moved to Horemheb and then to a vizier who called himself Ramses I. Shortly thereafter, we're going to get one of the greatest pharaohs of all history, Ramses II, or Ramses the Great. He's going to leave inscriptions that he went to battle at the Battle of Kadesh against the Hittites. There's a really interesting story about how his army got distracted, and so he almost single-handedly defeated the Hittites by himself. There are different versions of the story depending on who you ask, and both sides claim that they won. But to be fair, the city of Kadesh was still in the hands of the Hittites after everything was said and done. But they made a great treaty with the Hittites, and eventually that treaty paid off. Ramses' successor, Merneptah, who you might remember me mentioning before, Merneptah was useful also in the sense that we can use his victory stele to know that Israel was in the land in his 5th year, making it difficult for the 19th dynasty to have been the dynasty of the Exodus. Now, Merneptah was not as great as Ramses was. The fact is that he was less powerful as a pharaoh. He didn't do all the great monument building that Ramses had. And you've got to understand that monument building was a big part of who Pharaoh was, and it showed the health of his kingdom and his mighty power. After Merneptah's death, there are competing claims for Pharaoh, and the 19th dynasty gets into a lot of trouble. There are a lot of official corruption going on, various viziers being appointed by different candidates for Pharaoh. And because of all this, not only is there going to be corruption, but there's going to be a rash of tomb robbing. And also, enemies are going to rear their heads. Merneptah is going to have to deal with the incursions, some of the early incursions of the Sea People. And also, they're now getting trouble from raids from Libyans who are coming in from the side. More on these guys later. After this, the 19th dynasty goes into a death spiral. And eventually, order is only restored by the 20th dynasty being founded by a guy named Seth-Nokht. And Seth-Nokht, in addition to being strong and bringing back a lot of prestige to the pharaoh, he's also going to gain legitimacy by giving a great deal of land to the priest of Amun in Thebes. And after this, the priest of Amun in Thebes is going to have so much land and so much power that he's going to almost make his place as a second ruler in Egypt. And eventually, that's going to increase. Seth-Nokht's heir, Ramses III, is going to be the one who faces off against the Sea People and is able to defeat them. And he's going to resettle the Pelasets in the Levant. And that's where you're going to get them mixing in and becoming the Philistines that the children of Israel are forced to deal with, this more technologically advanced iron-using culture. But the battle is going to take a lot out of Egypt. The Hittites are going to be destroyed, and Egypt is going to be badly damaged. After this, Ramses the 4th through the 9th are all going to be either sons or grandsons of Ramses the 3rd. They're going to have very short reigns, and they're not going to do very well. And unfortunately, the power of the pharaohs is going to be greatly reduced. It's going to get to the point where they can hardly even pay their monument builders anymore. There's going to be very little in the way of monument building, and the power of Egypt is going to decline greatly underneath their rule. Another big problem is going to be the tomb robberies. During this time, tomb robberies are going to increase to the point where the priests are going to have to take special actions. To avoid the mummies of the pharaohs being desecrated, they're going to be forced to remove the grave goods from their tombs and to move all of them into a single location so that they can all be better guarded. The tomb robberies have gotten that bad. The incursions of the Libyans have only grown greater and caused more distress for Egypt. As they get weaker, their enemies are preying on them and becoming stronger and stronger. 200 years before David, Ramses XI is going to be so weak that he's going to be unable to stop an attack by the Cushites on the city of Thebes. And the high priest of Amun is actually going to rise up and defend his own land. And after that, there's not going to be any question anymore about who's the ruler of Egypt, because now there are two rulers of Egypt. There's going to be the pharaoh up in the north, and then the high priest of Amun in Thebes. This is going to be the end of the United Kingdom of Egypt. Instead, there are going to be two rulers. There's going to be a pharaoh in the north, and there's going to be a high priest in the south. And this is going to be the end of the new kingdom, and we're going to enter what's known as the 30. The high priest and the pharaoh are going to cooperate. They're going to work together, but both of them are going to be relatively weak compared to a united ruler of Egypt. During this time, the Libyans, who used to be so much of a pest, are actually going to start serving as mercenaries. And then they're going to set up a base in Bubastis. And the ruler in Bubastis, the Libyan, is going to get more and more powerful in comparison to the Egyptian rulers, so that his power is going to start approaching that of Pharaoh. And as time goes by, there's going to be intermarriage between the Libyans at Bubastis and the Pharaoh's household, until finally, at the end, the pharaohs are going to agree to allow the Libyans to take over. As you might recognize the name Shoshank, because there's a Shishak that shows up and he punches Rehoboam in the nose and takes all the gold of Solomon after the split of the kingdom. The kingdom of Israel is split off from the kingdom of Judah, and then Pharaoh Shoshank shows up and he runs off with the gold and a lot of the stuff that had belonged to Solomon and takes it out of the hands of Rehoboam. And Shoshank is going to be a powerful pharaoh. He is going to restore a great deal the power of Egypt. He is going to build monuments. He's going to make incursions through the Levant. And he's going to just generally be a very powerful pharaoh. But his followers are in no way his equal. And Egypt is going to once again become ineffective and weak. And as time goes by, the Libyans are going to try to exercise their power by striking south and exercising control over the Cushites. And the Cushites are the Africans living in the Sudan, and they are extremely influenced. They worship Amun. They're always very similar culturally and influenced by the Egyptians. But when the Libyans strike down, at first they're going to draw back a stump and they're going to lose their troops. And then they're going to try again. They're going to have had enough of this. They are going to strike north, and Piyeh is going to become the first Cushite pharaoh. The interesting thing is then that when you read about the children of Judah after the fall of the northern kingdom, they're going to be tempted to trust in Pharaoh to help them against the Assyrian plague. And the Egyptian pharaohs that they're being tempted to help, the ones that are going to show up and fight and help Judah, are going to be these Nubian pharaohs. They're going to be from the Sudan, and they're going to be very powerful, and they're going to come up and they're going to fight against Assyria, and they're going to lose, because Assyria is more powerful than them. And after a series of battles, the Assyrians are going to take Egypt away from the Cushites, and they're going to place a puppet pharaoh on the throne. But they're not going to be able to take over the Cushites. Well, that's another one of my episodes. Thank you so much for watching the whole way. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I love to answer questions. And if you're interested in it, I would love to talk about it. Also, if you have any other ideas about things that I could tell you about biblical history, I'm always open to suggestions, because it's what you want to hear that I would like to talk about. Now, if you like biblical history, like I like biblical history, or even a fraction as much as I like biblical history, I have a book out called A Helpful Handbook of Hebrew History. And it's available on WisePath Books or Amazon.com, and the links are in the comments below. Now, I would recommend that you would read a book instead of listening to videos all the time, because as an educator, I know it's much better for your brain, especially if you're not an adult yet. If you're still a youth, your brain is better if you read. So I would recommend that you read that book.